Hey, y'all. Welcome to Sunday Dinner Conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Shelley, and I am so excited for tonight's show. First of all, I want to thank our production team and our guests for making this live show a reality every week. And today we're going to talk about what is the most important kind of love, which is self-love. This is a continuation of last week when we heard from a mom who was, really just bringing self-love into her entire family unit. And today we're going to talk about self-love and those who inspire us to have more self-love. And we're going to talk with a friend of mine who's been on a journey for self-love for many, many years. And I'm so proud of her for finally really getting to a place where she's all the way there. And so in order to begin, I wanted to ask you all a question. You ever have one of those days where just getting out of bed and putting one foot in front of the other seems like a victory? Well, today for me, if I'm being totally honest, family, it's one of those days. Today is my daddy's birthday. He would have been 77 years old. And if there was anybody on earth who inspired me and showed me what it meant to love myself, it was him. My daddy was unapologetically real. He was hilariously funny. And a lot of the times he was a complete a-hole, if I'm being totally honest. But for me, he was the best man on earth. Not because he always made the best decisions or gave me everything, because believe you me, he didn't just give me everything. But he was the best because he loved me often more than I love myself. He taught me how to love myself by always loving me unconditionally. And his love didn't always look the way I wanted it to, but it was always what I needed. One of the things that my dad used to say to me, he'd say to me, baby girl, you've got to have enough love to overcome the hate that is coming your way. And I didn't always understand what he meant by that. But as a Black man in America, I started to learn as I got older what he meant. And he knew that life was going to be a little bit difficult. And it's difficult for everybody. But the idea of being able to love yourself through it, he knew that we have to have enough love in ourselves to be able to overcome some of the trials and tribulations that we have. But how do you build self-love? How do you develop it? My daddy was the ultimate courageous leader because he was unafraid to not be liked in order to do what was right for you. He was that guy that would tell you what about yourself, regardless of how you felt about it. And, he would deliver those harsh truths. And it wasn't until later on in life that I really knew what kind of a toll that took on him. Well, he would tell it to everybody. He would tell everybody about themselves. And one of those other folks that he would tell about themselves was my best friend growing up, Lenidra Woods. And she is our guest today. My dad went back and forth between her. Either some days she was considered a bad influence. And then on other days, he would push us together because he knew how much we needed each other because we were so vastly different, but we enjoyed one another's company and really grew up together. So tonight we are going to celebrate my dad's 77th birthday, talking about self-love and the role that our families play in helping us love ourselves, or sometimes the roles our families play in making self-love a bit more difficult. We'll be discussing our time at Valley View High School. So my Valley View Eagles, if you are on, go ahead and shout it out. We're glad to have you here. And that's how it's going to be tonight on Sunday Dinner Conversations. After we get back to this from this commercial break, we'll be back with Lenidra Woods, who's going to tell us a little bit about what self-love and the journey to self-love has been for her. We'll be right back.
I don't know about you, but you make me crazy. Never got your name, but you got me begging. All I know about you, you like to pick and choose, make it all about you. Go take it all if you want. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat, just wanna give you my best. I don't even know your name, but you got me, 'cause you're old to die. We don't know what happens next, but you got me, 'cause I'm next in line. You make it look so easy, making me feel so dreamy. Not the one who pays for drinks, but you got me, 'cause you're older than. Got me locked in now. Go ahead and take a shot. Do you really want me? Maybe you're just
Welcome back to Sunday Dinner Conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Shelley, and tonight's guest is my high school best friend. Over 30 years, we've known each other. We've been through it all together, and today she is going to tell you about her self-love journey. And I'm so excited to bring on Miss Lenidra Woods. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome to have you here, and thank you just for always being willing to be in this with me, friend, and be totally transparent. So we got to start with a daddy story. We do. So what is your favorite Ronald Jones story? And as you think of that, I'm going to tell one of mine that I had growing up. So, and you probably remember this. So, y'all, one of the things that my dad used to do is he finally let me drive when I was 16. I could drive to school and back, or I could drive my brother to practice and back. And pretty much that was only the places I was allowed to drive. And he had a whole bunch of rules, but the one that I didn't realize was really important was that there was not allowed to be anybody in the car. And so, what I know you know what story I'm going to. So one day I went my brother from school, and I had gotten there early, of course, because football practice was getting out, and of course I had to drive up and pick my brother up as I was driving, of course. So I didn't have anybody in the car when I was driving, and we were sitting out in front of the football where the football players were coming out, and a couple of my friends had come out. And we were talking and stuff, and one of my friends, John Schoberg, sat in the passenger seat. Car is off. Car's not moving. He literally just sat down, put his backpack down. He was sitting there. And I was waiting on my brother to come out. Well, about 10 minutes or so go by. I'm still sitting out there waiting. And next thing you know, here comes my dad in those spandex biker shorts, what do you call it? The white t-shirts and some dress shoes and some dress socks, walking up. And man, he went in on me in front of the entire football team about not having anybody in the car. And I remember John Show tried to say something. It was all bad. And I remember getting teased about that, like literally till we graduated, about, how crazy my dad was. But everybody knew my dad. And, he was no joke. He did not play. Do you have a favorite daddy story?
One thing that I really enjoyed was when I used to come to your home and we would watch boxing. Your father taught me so much about boxing. That was like his thing. He would have the snacks ready, everybody be quiet. He's going to let you know what's going on. And just to be able to have family time, because I wasn't used to that in my own household, I really appreciated and enjoyed those moments. And
I
also,
remember.
whenever he did reprimand us, he did give us a storyline behind it, which that always helps because, as teenagers, we don't understand. Sometimes adults just look angry, right?
That
But he
part.
told the story of why he felt the way that he felt, why he said what he said, and then it was easier and it softened the blow. So I appreciated that.
He would. And oftentimes after he had gone off, he would bring you in to tell you why he had gone off on you once he calmed down. And it was always that, okay, he's going to come back. There were many times coming up, and that story just speaks to it that, I know I wished I had your life because you had a lot more freedom than I did. You had a lot more ability to come and go. I had the helicopter parents where we had to like check in every 10 minutes. Then pagers would be going off, over and over again, and trying to ride around and find a payphone. Remember that? Because we only had our pagers. And so I remember I always wanted that freedom that you had, and you would always look at my life and constantly remind me that I needed to appreciate the fact that my parents were, cared enough to really be strict on me. How do you think that the way you were raised impacted how you felt about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, for me, a lot of things were trial and error, and I had to learn on my own. Um, it's that pain directed thing where some people just different learning methods. And for me, a lot of times I had to hurt. Like you could tell me 1,000 times not to do it, but I do it anyways, as you know. And then I, I would have to get it back together after that. So that for me was the difference. Like you had structure, you had your parents constantly on you. I did have structure, but I had a single parent who was hardly home. So it made it really hard. And I know that my mother did the best that she could, but it was a struggle.
And I remember, like, it's one of those things where we can look on the outside looking in. We always think the grass looks greener on the other side. Because I would remember thinking, like, she just has no idea how free she has it. And she, her mom trusts her. And I interpreted the fact that my parents were always on me as they didn't trust me. And it was just very different. It wasn't a trust issue, as we learned as we got older. It was more so a protection mechanism. And there's a different style of parenting that worked for some kids, some worked for others. How do you think that kind of your upbringing impacted how you raised your own sons?
I was the total opposite of my mom. I was actually too strict on my mother. I mean, my children. I ended up being a lot like your parents with my own, and they complained to me that I'm so strict. So I turned out to be the total opposite
That
because
is,
much freedom and got into a lot of trouble with that freedom. I did not give my children that option.
you know what, and I appreciate that. Because, what did your boys say about it? How did they feel about it?
They weren't too happy with that. A lot of the time, a lot of the stories that they tell me now that they're all adults, they snuck and did it anyways, but they knew not to let me know. And they let me know that they were very angry at the structure and me being so strict. They felt like I didn't want them to have fun.
Mm. How do you combat that? Like, if you had to do it over and kind of get rid of that, how would you combat that?
I feel that I would be probably a little bit more lenient, but with parenting, it doesn't come with the handbook. And I just knew that I wanted to give my children something different than what I experienced. So I tried my best, but it's a hit and miss thing with kids. You just never know.
True, true. And I know that growing up, one of the things that you really, really struggled with was that whole self-love piece and being able to love and appreciate yourself for the skin, the body, though, just who you are, completely, which is, awesome. But also it being part of one another's lives impacted that. What was it about being a part of my life that impacted your ability to love yourself? What do you think about our friendship and our, just our lives intermingling like that?
I think for us, we were like the yin and yang. So it really gave us both a chance to get insight on the other side of the fence. And me being around you and your parents and structure and having fun with you, for me, it let me see the things that I wanted. And being able to see that helped me to heal because there was lots of times, like for example, where your mother used to have conversations with me about self-love. And I really appreciated that nurturing part. And I feel that it really helped me because sometimes to get a different perspective than what you have going on in your own home can be inspirational. And then seeing you, like, remember how you were in high school, like if she got a B, she was crying. And I'm like, gosh, Shelley, you got a B. And you're like, but I'm an A, I don't want to be. So just seeing that and seeing how you pushed yourself, like you really pushed yourself. You were motivated at a young age. And I got to see that, and that was inspiring.
Really? Really? You know what? I never thought of it as being inspired. I was probably mostly panicked, um, more than anything else. What do you think it inspired you to want to do more of? Because I remember you saying that, like, goodness, I wish I pushed myself as much as you do. And I would be like, I didn't feel like I pushed myself enough, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it did make me want to push myself more. And it also let me kind of see how important things were that was a little bit lax in. You know, my priorities were different. And I got to see that your priorities were in the right place and you were doing the right thing where I was just doing whatever I wanted to do.
And I feel about right and wrong, because I believe that we all have a different story, but we don't necessarily have, judgment of our stories. And that's part of our challenge, even with self-love, is judging our stories as opposed to just experiencing them. And so when we come back from commercial break, what we're going to do is we're going to hear your story, because you have an amazing story of how you've come, through a lot over these years with your relationships, with your views of yourself, body image, and just thoughts, and, just being able to overall love yourself and accept yourself for who you are. So when we come back, we're going to come back with that journey of to self-love with Lenidra Woods on Sunday Dinner Conversations on the 5F's to Love Network. We'll be right back.
Get it that I'm never going back. Get it that I'm never going back. I get to it first, I got you mad. I guess that when I get to it last. Get it that I'm never going back. Get it that I'm never going back. Going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going up. Get it that I'm never.
Baby, I've been thinking about the things we said. Oh yeah. And maybe we'd be better off being just friends. Oh yeah. It's getting kinda obvious what you want from me. Only calling when you feel alone. You make promises, then you let them go. So if you just wanna have my body, you better go find somebody else.
Welcome back to Sunday Dinner Conversations with Dr. Shelley on the 5F's to Love Network. This is one of my oldest friends, literally over 30 years of friendship that you're looking at here. We calculated the other day. I was like, oh my goodness, 30 years. Did we ever thought that we were going to say that after meeting in high school and just kind of moving all the way through life together over these years? And so as promised, I'm going to ask you to just tell the story. And I appreciate you being vulnerable because I know this is, very unlike you, I'll just say. And I appreciate you doing it. But we are going to be able to help folks by knowing your story. And so go ahead and tell us, what is your story? Tell us your journey to self-love. When did you realize? Let's start from the beginning. When did you realize that self-love was important or that you didn't have it?
I realized a lot about self-love being a teen mother. So I had my first child at 17, and I had a lot of time to myself because I had one of those mothers that was very firm on, you had the child, you raised the child, I'm not going to help. So with those moments of solitude with my son, I got to sit and ponder and really evaluate myself and some of the things that I was going through, and how a lot of my experiences were based on my childhood and childhood traumas. I grew up with a parent that was mentally ill and had a substance abuse problem and was very, very abusive. And then I had another parent that was very loving and nurturing, but she had to provide. And so she didn't have a lot of time to give to me. So here I am trying to find my way in life with these two totally different parents. And I made some bad decisions. And although my child, I don't regret, but because of the lack of self love, I wasn't as cautious as maybe someone who was more directed towards their future and in more of nurturing environments. But having this child really made me sit down and think. And even though I had time to sit down and think, the weird thing about it was also having the child kind of brought me into a dark place, because here I am, a teen mother. I'm having to watch everybody go to prom, everybody do their thing. Even though I did graduate early and on time, I still wasn't able to enjoy the rest of my life, so I thought. So I kind of spiraled out of control, made more bad choices, got in abusive relationships, and it just spiraled out of control from there. And I had an aha moment one day when one of my sons just told me, like, Mom, are you okay? You're always in your room. Like, are you okay? And the fact that my son
Mm.
had to bring that to my attention, that's when I went and I started to get help. The thing about being in the Black community that is to a lot of people scary is seeking professional help. Um, Going to therapy did a lot for me because I learned how to organize all these thoughts. Sometimes we don't know how to organize our thoughts in a healthy manner because sometimes we're attacking ourselves as we're thinking about the things that we've been through in our lives and the experiences. So I learned how to process better. And in that, I also learned how the affirmations, looking in the mirror and telling yourself the I ams, I am beautiful, I am smart, I am strong, I will be successful. So the affirmations helped a lot. And then spiritually, I got my spiritual man together. I started to read books like the Four Agreements. That was a really good book, and it really helped me a lot just to put things in the proper perspective because a lot of times this self-hate and all of these emotions that we carry is because we're concerned about the way others view us versus the way that we view ourselves.
That part, that whole part right there. What did you think that people thought of you, especially after you had little Theo? Because I remember that I was right there with you throughout the whole thing, and not to bring another daddy story into it, but I remember me when I threw you that baby shower. It was such a love-hate relationship he had with us at that point. He was so angry and disappointed, yet still wanted to make sure that he's going out and getting the chicken, and he's going out getting this, but oh, he was mad at, well, he was mad at you. He wasn't mad at me. I didn't do it. But and I know that he wasn't the only one. You could feel the disappointment. Even when we were trying to celebrate, you could feel it in the air. What do you think that did for your own view of yourself? Even though we were all, going to be supportive and we're supportive, but you still had to look at yourself in the mirror. There were many struggles that happened with that. How do you
I,
think?
I had a very hard time. My father was very hard on me and very unhappy. I mean, he wanted to force me to get rid of the baby and terminate the pregnancy. And I literally had to hide out from him because I was terrified of what he was going to do. So that for me, again, it took me into a dark place. And I had to really learn spiritually to learn how to pray, learn how to love myself, learn how to read self-help books, learn how to be motivated and to get myself out of a dark place because it was very hard and it wasn't common like it is now either. I mean, so back then when you get pregnant in high school, they send you to continuation. Now you're no longer welcomed in a regular high school. That was hard because the work that they were giving was like, I mean, I was getting documents, having to do like autobiographies on Prince for my English. And so it wasn't very challenging. And that did something to me too, because I'm like, wait a minute, I can do better than this. But I brought myself to that place. So I had to really learn how to adjust. And it was not easy.
You're right. And you know what? You reminded me that homework story did remind me because I remember I'd be over there doing homework with you and I'd be showing you some of my homework, like, no, you can do this, you can do this. Because what they were giving you, I just remember we both were looking at it like, really? You have my homework and yours side by side, and we're in the same grade. And it just so happened that you got pregnant and were having a baby, but that didn't do anything to your mind. You could still think. And you're right. They were, I do remember that. And that on top of, it's like thing after thing after thing after thing, when you start to think about it, that was really kind of coming down on you. And here you are kind of trying to pull yourself up. And, I remember one of the things that I remember always looking at you was you were always to me so gorgeous. Still to this day, I think you are the prettiest thing on the planet. And typically you kind of fall into a lot of stereotypical views of beauty for Black women, having the green eyes, the lighter skin, back then we had these little figures. Now we got some thick figures. We just go, we filled out, if you will. But how do you think being pretty by society standards impacted the love that you had for yourself, given all that was happening around you?
Well, it was extra weight because you can't let them see you sweat. So you have to put on your game face and wear a mask. And that was hard because a lot of times I wanted to break down and cry, but I had to smile. And again, in the Black community, with all these stereotypes, and of course getting therapy is so taboo. How dare you do that? We don't tell people our business. you know it was really hard, it was challenging.
Absolutely. And, having that, because there was also a lot of colorism involved as well, that, was impacting a lot of that because, there's this thought that if you're lighter and that your life is going to be easier for you because you don't have to fight, some of the things that our darker brothers and sisters did. And so there was almost like a minimizing we saw in the community of your issues because it's like, yeah, but she's still light skinned. So she, can still do some things that others can't. And so it almost takes away from some of the pain and the challenges and essentially the trauma that you were experiencing. Do you think that any of that had something to do with the relationships that you got yourself into?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I like to say that pretty people have pretty problems. And
Same
they
part.
the reason why I say that pretty people have pretty problems is there's high expectations, number one, because we are considered privileged, that we're supposed to just know everything and everything is supposed to just come to us naturally, when in all actuality, not only do we have to deal with society as a whole, but then our own community is against us because of our lighter skin sometimes. So, and I mean, the hardest thing for me is I never understood that there are some people that just don't like you just because of the color of your skin. I
Even
mean,
Black folks that don't like you because of the lighter color of your skin. I remember us seeing that in church a few times and having some conversations as we were noticing, the way some people would treat you versus your brother, and just it was real sticky for us. And because we were trying to make sense of it, we just didn't understand it as much as we do. Now 30 years later, so things can make more sense when you're grown. But when you're young and you're experiencing that on top of, if we're being honest, kind of messing up from time to time, it can carry a weight, right? And so, going back to those relationships, though, what do you think that those relationships were feeling? Because you had a couple of doozies over the years, and I don't want to go. I mean, go into as much detail as you feel comfortable. But what do you think you were feeling with some of those relationships?
well, in a lot of my relationships, I was considered, I guess, like the trophy, just sit pretty and shut up. You're not supposed to have a brain. You're not supposed to be able to think for yourself. You're not supposed to be independent. Um, a lot of control. Um, and for me, because I'm an outspoken person, that really didn't work for me, which also helped me spiral into another type of depression because I wanted to be independent and self sufficient, but it wasn't promoted in my relationships. It was like, just shut up and be my trophy wife. And in that aspect, that was really hard because already being women is hard enough with all the responsibilities of holding down a household. And then in addition to working, but then not having a say so in your own household was really hard.
Absolutely. And, and you often felt, we would talk about it, you felt like, even though you were in relationships, you always felt like a single mom, like all of the weight of raising the boys and making sure that they were taken care of was on you. Do you think that that may have impacted how much time you had to even think about yourself, much less take care of yourself?
It didn't. And that's another thing that I feel that a lot of Black women have to deal with. Sometimes we're not able to feel because we just have to go. That fight or flight, we're just flying, we're just surviving. And you don't have time to internalize and really deal with things until you have those moments of solitude. And then that's when you break down. And then it's like, well, where is all this emotion coming from? Not realizing that I never took the time to feel because I just had to go.
Exactly. Oh, and you needed to take that time to just pause sometimes, but you didn't have it. You didn't have it. And so we're going to take a commercial break in a moment. But when we come back, part of what happened is you tried to cope. All this was going on, and all this struggle that you had to love yourselves. You had several different ways that you got into coping, and one of them was pushing people away. Another was turning to things that may not have been healthy. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of those things that you turned to and what really made you push people away when you probably needed them the most. When we return to Sunday Dinner Conversations on the 5Fs to Love Network, we'll see you in a moment.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Loving how you wind up for me. Tonight is all on me. Mash up the place for me. Yeah, yeah. She just wanna highlight. Ooh, that body talk to me. I need a taste, baby. Loving the way you move around me. No more delay. No, you can wait to shut it down. Want to show me how you work it. I can't find no flaws, you perfect. Cause every time that you come around my way, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. And every time that you come across my mind, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. In love. Yeah.
Broken future. All the plans you made in your heart grew just to die.
Hi, welcome back to Sunday Dinner Conversations. We are in the midst of this conversation with one of my high school best friends of 30 years, Lenidra Woods, who has really mastered this concept of self-love. And when you know her story, you know how deep and wonderful it is to see the beautiful healed woman that we see in front of us. We've been talking about kind of one of the difficulties of getting yourself to be able to love yourself, even when life is not always just as you need it to be. One of the legacies of the destruction of our families over centuries has been the lack of trust that exists in the Black community, especially. And we were talking a little bit about how that lack of trust and being able to get mental health support, the lack of trust even in one another, just being able to reach out and come together. It's been difficult. And I was just thinking about this before the show. I was like, I wonder if I know anyone who has ever been able to tell me they fully trust everybody in their family. And I don't know that I've met anybody who can say, like, yeah, I know I can go to anybody in my family. It's ride or die. We're right there. Although that may be what we want, I don't know anybody that can actually say that. And that's something that we have to think about as we look at how we're going to heal our communities for the future. And so you mentioned how hard sometimes it was to, get therapy and get the help that you needed. And at times you coped in various ways. What were some of the ways that you coped with trying to address the lack of love that you sometimes had for yourself?
I did a lot of drinking, so alcohol abuse, substance abuse, hurting myself by making more bad decisions because who cares? I'm already hurting. So,
Mm-hmm. So just kind of apathetic, like whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do me,
mhm. So spiraling more out of control. But what I can say, and I'm sure a lot of mothers can relate to this, is when you look at your children, they motivate you to do better. You
They
see
do.
eyes looking at you, and then you realize like I can't do this anymore. And that's kind of what helped me snap back. But also, as we were talking about, I had an issue with pushing everybody away from me that loved me.
Yep. So what was it that made you push people away when you probably needed them the most?
I pushed them away because so much rejection and so much hurt already, and then just humiliation. The truth hurts, and sometimes you don't want to hear the truth, and you don't want to be around anybody that's going to remind you of the truth. And so I internalized and I stayed to myself because I felt in my mind at that time that that was the best thing for me. But I later realized that all this time has passed me by where I have severed bonds that I really needed, especially being a mother, womanhood, being Black women in society. Like, we really need each other, and everybody needs somebody, but sometimes you don't realize that while you're going through things because you're so worried about how you're going to be looked at that you don't understand that love conquers everything.
That part. That part. What do you think that any of us, because being fully transparent, I was one of those folks, and I remember the hurt and just keep on coming back, or I was constantly texting. I had an alert on my phone to text you once or call you or something, or email something, to reach out. And for years not getting anything back, it was like, all right, well, whatever. She'll reach out eventually, or every once in a while, I'll be like, oh yeah, I meant to come back. What do you think that people could have said that may have changed their mind, or is there anything anybody could have said?
I don't think that there's anything that anybody could have said because there was so much that I thought I was hiding. That's the thing that we really got to think about is you think you're hiding, but really everybody can really see what's really going on. And now, I get to see that for what it is, and I apologize. I'm trying to get better.
It
Um,
is what it is.
what what you could say to somebody that is going through is just to be supportive and let them know that you love them no matter what, no matter how you see yourself, no matter how others see you. I see you this way, and I love you, and my love is unconditional.
That part. And when we say that word unconditional, I see it thrown around a lot. And it's like at its core, when you know that somebody loves you unconditionally, what does that mean? Unconditional love.
Well, when I say unconditionally, I mean that no matter what you're going through, I'm going to love you through it. It doesn't mean that you're condoning it. It doesn't mean that you're accepting it. It just means that, hey, I am here for you, and I'm going to love you through whatever struggles you're going through right now at this moment in your life.
Mm, mm. And that unconditional love, I wanted to ask you about just kind of loving yourself, because there were times that you mentioned you didn't even feel like you were worthy of love. How did you love yourself when you felt like you were not even worthy of love? How did you learn to love yourself? What did you do? How'd you get there?
I learned to look in the mirror and say those affirmations. Those I am affirmations really, really helped me. If you got to write them on your mirror, if you got to type them out and put a paper on your mirror, say those I am affirmations daily until it sticks, until you know that you know that you know who you are. And that really helped to wake me up.
Really? Do you still say them to this day? Like, is this something you continue to do?
I say my I am affirmations. I create vision boards for myself. I check off what's on my vision boards for the year. Um, I read self-help books. Like I said, The Four Agreements is one of my favorites. Um, The Purpose Driven Life is another one that I like.
Yeah.
So I try to stay in books that motivate and encourage too. And of course, sisterhood, friends, not shutting doors to those who do love you, not closing yourself off from those experiences because we're here to live. And you're not living when you're isolated. That is not a way to live your life, to be isolated, feeling sorry for yourself, having pity parties.
That part. And you mentioned the four agreements a couple of times. And just for our viewers and listeners out there, the four agreements is an ancient Toltec text written by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's amazing. And just to review, the four agreements are really simple, actually. They're be impeccable with your word, and that includes how you speak to yourself. So even when we say things like, oh, that was so stupid, or one of my phrases used to be, ding dong diva strikes again, right? And these are, while it may seem funny and trite, these are actually ways that we're not being impeccable with our word to ourselves and loving on ourselves. The second agreement, and they don't necessarily go in this order, is not to make assumptions. So being, have courageous enough to ask the clarifying questions or let it go. Because when we start making assumptions about what other people think about us or what's going on, and you really don't know, you work yourself up unnecessarily. One of the other agreements is not to take anything personal, and really thinking about nothing anybody does is about you. And yet we oftentimes think that everything everybody does is about us. And then the last agreement is just to do your best, and recognizing that your best is different at different times. And so one of the things that the four agreements talks about is really recognizing when we are being our own worst enemy. And I mean, in each of those agreements, it's not about agreements that you have with other people. It's agreements that you have with yourself, because oftentimes that what's holding us back from self-love is ourselves. How did you recognize when you were being your own worst enemy?
I recognize it when, I'll tell you, my aha moment was I used to like my room dark. So I would work, I would go out into society and put on this happy face, and then I'd come home and go into a dark, gloomy room. One day I just decided to open up the window and just let light in. And believe it or not, as simple as that sounds, just light in a dark room is enough to encourage and to wake something up inside you. I mean, I can't express enough. Light colors, opening windows, airing out your house, moving things around. These small changes are the beginning of being healthy.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Just opening up the window and letting in light. I'm thinking, and what I was thinking about as you were saying that is the habits that we get into that reinforce some of what is negative going on in our lives. So, going out and doing one thing and then coming back and doing another at home and being all gloomy, that can definitely impact our lives and our mindset, right? And so our habits can also reveal for us where we are and whether or not we're truly being impeccable with our word and living, how we definitely should be living to love on ourselves. What do you think happens to our families in general? And I mean, not necessarily yours, but what happens to our families when we struggle with self-love?
Well, we pass that on. That trauma bond, we pass that on to our children, which makes it very hard. I want everybody to envision the way that the weight of the world is. It's like carrying, imagine somebody carrying weights on their shoulder. And you have these heavy weights on your shoulder. Like, how long can you walk around? How long can you be productive with all this extra weight on your shoulder? That's what that does to you. So we have to learn to release the weights. Erica Badu has a song, Bag Lady. All of those bags. That's why she says pack light, because we're carrying all of these emotions that don't serve us anything. We're carrying all this negativity. And at the end of the day, it affects your production, it affects your overall health. Because if you think about disease, it's a dis-ease, right? And it starts from not feeling good about yourself. So learn to let go of those things that don't serve you. You don't have to hold on to that. Learn to heal the little girl, which is where I'm at right now in my life. Is sometimes it's the childhood trauma that we carry on as adults, and we don't recognize that we're using the same tools that we use as a child as an adult, when we're much more intelligent than that, right? We've experienced life and we've learned new things, and it's time to apply that so that we can let go of those things that don't serve us anymore.
Mm, that was a whole word, y'all. I hope you heard it. Because Nini's dropping some bombs on us right now. And I appreciate it, because that it's so very true that, not only what you were saying, but also our children are always watching us. And they're watching not only what we do well, the things that we want them to see, they're also watching how we handle struggles, how we handle challenges. What do we do when we get stressed out? And so I know one of the things I am still to this day working on is, not necessarily having a short fuse. I'm pretty patient, but when I do, I tend to raise my voice and go, okay, I need this, and I just get very loud. And then when I'll notice, and I'll get very direct, and I noticed that my boys and my kids, all of them actually, will do the same thing. And so it's not till you see some of those characteristics in your kids, you're like, oh, I don't want them doing that, but I do it, right? And it's not anything that I, literally went and taught them, but they learned it from watching me. Are there any things that the boys do that you look back and go, oh, okay, I didn't want you to do that, but now I see me in you?
Yeah, I'm very outspoken and I talk crazy, and my boys will tell you. They like, because I don't care who's around. I just tell it like it is. And my children are a lot like me in that area. And another thing that I would like to say though is apologizing. I don't know why society doesn't normalize us apologizing to our children, because they're human beings too, and they have feelings too. And some of the stuff that they have endured with us is worthy of an apology so that they can heal and move on and not carry on some of these traumas that we carried on. Because if you think about your childhood or anything that you held on to, what would an apology have done for you at that time in your life? And loving your children like they deserve the best. So let's apologize. I'm sorry that I raised my voice. I'm sorry that I said whatever I said. I'm sorry that I did this if it hurt you. Anything to make them be healthy. That's what we're trying to promote. So we got to get out of that I'm the adult and you just deal with whatever I put. No, apologize. Move forward.
That part. Ooh, you are dropping some knot between the dis-ease. I love that. It's a disease. It's dis-ease. And with, just the idea of thinking about how we can apologize and ways that we can normalize apologizing to our young people. These are the kind of things that will make our family stronger. These are the kind of things that will make us stronger. And in a moment, when we come back from our break, we're going to have our last segment, and we're going to have you tell us, what advice you would have, not only for the wives and mothers and parents out there, but also for younger Nene. What would you tell 15 or even 12 or 9-year-old you that you wish you had known then that, now you know? So we'll be back on Sunday Dinner Conversations here on the 5S to Love Network. Be sure to like and subscribe to our page if you enjoy what's going on. Do it now. See you in a minute.
My business. 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 My business.
Welcome back to Sunday Dinner Conversations. I'm your host, Dr. Shelley, and we have been having an amazing conversation with my best friend of over 30 years, Lenidra Woods. Before we get into your advice, though, you got to tell us about the jewels, your stones, because I know your stones have had so much influence on your life, and I don't want to miss that moment to kind of tell us a little bit about.
So I'm deep into the metaphysics and I love my stones, and different stones help to promote different moods. I consider it like a mood ring. So the way that I like to explain my jewelry is that we have all kinds of elements in our bodies and in our blood and in our makeup. And we, from the earth, we return. So a lot of these gems, they have different elements that we already have in our system. So according to my moods, like for example, this is labradorite, and I love labradorite because it helps with intuition. It helps with clairvoyance. It helps with some of the gifts that we have. I wear jade every day because the jade helps with moods, and it's said to give good luck. I really believe in these things, and I have crystals everywhere. I mean, as I'm speaking right now, I have selenite. So, and this is cleansing and purification. I sage daily. It just different things that help me to, I guess, move forward in whatever I have going on for that day.
Awesome. And I just want to give you an opportunity because I know that is very near and dear to your heart. She was trying to explain it to me, y'all, and I already have a list of stones. I'm supposed to pick one. And all day long, I've been like, well, which one do I pick? What's it going to mean? I know I'm overthinking it, as I do probably most things. As we round out this hour, and again, I want to thank you for being here. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you. And, you've had a beautiful life journey. And the Nini that's in front of me, it reminds me so much of kind of the joy that we did have when we were younger, and we could come together. It was always like a safe haven when we were around each other. Like you were my safe person, I was your safe person. Like we could be ourselves around each other, and it was like the whole world was like out there. What advice would you have for other beautiful women, mothers, parents, families who may be struggling with their own self-love journey, and even the family members who might be supporting someone who they know may not be making the best personal choices, but they've locked them out? What advice would you have for folks?
Rule number one, don't be so hard on yourself. You're going to go through a challenge in life. Feel, but don't stay long. Allow yourself to feel. Yes, this happened. Yes, I feel this way. And then allow it to move on. A lot of people have hard times with expression. So if you can't verbally express it, write it down. Even if you have to burn it later, write down those feelings and get them out. It's really important to use your voice, your throat chakra. Go ahead and open up and let that out. That helps so much. Also, words of encouragement. Sometimes you can see something in your friend that they don't see in themselves that's positive. Remind them of that. I see that you're productive. I see that you're intelligent. I see that I love the way you do your eyebrows, girl. Like compliments help, especially with us as women. Like we need that to encourage each other. Another thing, believe it or not, is self-care. We all have our own versions of self-care. For me, I love going to the mall, buying shoes, clothes, jewelry, whatever. That's my self-care. When I'm
got us in a lot of trouble over the years, just saying.
Do self-care. Even if it's taking yourself to a restaurant, learn how to enjoy solitude. That's another thing. People are so afraid to be by themselves. Being by yourself is a beautiful thing because there's silence. This is a time where you reflect. This is a time where you really sit back and analyze things. This is a time where you create a vision board. What do you want to do? What are your goals? What is it that gives you that spark in your life? Take that time to really ask yourself that, because a lot of times we get so caught up in life and just going that we forget that it's not too late to still have dreams. Let's dream. Let's talk about our dreams. Let's do a vision board about our dreams. Let's talk to our friends about our dreams. Like it's never too late. Remind yourself of that.
It's never too late. And I mean, you've given us 10 different things that we could do to really love on ourselves, from not being hard, allowing ourselves to feel, being able to move on from those feelings. So don't stay in that shame or whatever it is that you're feeling, but just allow yourself to feel it. Getting the feelings out, whether it's by writing or voice. That's a beautiful recommendation. Doing words of encouragement for yourself and for others. And I love the one around enjoying solitude, because and I want to be very clear, solitude is different from isolation. There's a difference. Time alone to reflect and really get in your own thoughts is different from isolating yourself on purpose from people to avoid interaction or avoid accountability or avoid whatever it is that you may be avoiding by doing that. My last question for you, of course, is this question I ask everybody, all of my guests. What would you tell younger you if you could speak with her and little Nene to be sitting on that green couch in your mama's house? And we'd be sitting there. What would you tell her as we were watching Maury Povich reruns?
There's going to be sunshine, there's going to be rain, there's going to be joy, and there's going to be pain. If we didn't have them all, then there wouldn't be balance. When you think about the worst time in your life, and then you think about the happiest time in your life, you see that things change, and these are just moments. Remind yourself that they are moments. It's not constant. That's the beautiful thing about life, are the moments. So, yeah, you had a sad moment today, but tomorrow is a new day. And you have to speak that joy in your life, declare that joy in your life, and embrace that joy in your life. And don't be like me and push away your loved ones, because that is so important. Everybody needs somebody. We all need a support system. We all need teammates and somebody to let us know that everything is going to be okay.
Absolutely. And I need you to know, friend, I love you. I see you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And all these years, I've always looked up to Nene. And it's been weird because she looks up to me. I look up to her. We're both, because you are literally the strongest human being I know. I know your story. I know a lot of what you've been through. I also know there's a lot that over the years you didn't want me to know. And that's, even that makes me go, oh my gosh, what could it possibly be? But you're still smiling. You are still here. You are still thriving. You are still an amazing businesswoman who I learn from on the regular, the most full of all kinds of ideas. You ever need an idea or to throw something around? I call Nene. She'll have like 10 of them for you. Like, bam, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And just that acumen always has been a positive influence on others. And so I want to thank you for just being my friend, being my rock, and especially on a day like today when it's really hard for me to get through. I mean, she was the first person I talked to this morning, knowing that February 5th is the hardest day in the calendar for me, because we know the power of having people in our lives that care about us. And so I just want you to always know I care about you and I'm here for you. So thank you for being here with us today. And and to the rest of my folks, I know, golly, to get emotional, go figure. We at Family Leadership, Family Legacy 5 and Leadership Legacy Consulting are focused on building and developing courageous leadership where we live, learn, and earn. Personal leadership, knowing yourself, loving yourself is a foundational part of that, because our personal leadership is a foundational piece of our family leadership, which is where all these things begin and flourish. And we want you to be able to be courageous and be able to push past some of the scary things in life. And so there's always little things that we can do to show yourself more love today. And Nene gave you 10 of them. I'm going to give you 3 quick ones. One is to feed your mind. So whatever way you can feed your mind, whether that's books, whether that's reading, whether that's podcasts, whatever it is you need to feed your mind, please do. Taking care of your body, because your physical and your mental are tied together. So make sure you're taking care of your body. You're eating right. You're going for your checkups. It's the first of the year, folks. It is Black Love Month, Black History Month. You know, whatever it is you need to do to take care of you, you are the most important part of this. Protect your peace and your spirit. Make sure you develop spiritual hygiene, and finally connect with yourself and others. So, you know, we always have one ask of you here on Sunday Dinner Conversations on the 5F's of Love Network. And so what I'd like to ask you to do this week is to post a picture of the person in your life that really helped you develop your self-love. Y'all already saw my Facebook page and all over. I posted my daddy. He is the one who helped me develop and love on me. And remember what he said, you've got to love on you to be able to overcome the hate. And And he wasn't just talking about external hate. I know now he was also talking about the internal things that we do to self-sabotage. And so that is our show for this week. Please like and subscribe and share, comment, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And until next week, when we do a little bit more on overcoming challenges here on Sunday Dinner Conversations with Dr. Shelley on the 5S to Love Network. Till next time, I love y'all. See you later. Mwah.